but no less sharp. "Ryan," she said like it was a song. "You look exactly like your father." I didn't reply, just nodded, stepped inside. The air smelled like lavender and lemon polish. Immaculate. "Still allergic to cats?" she asked, gesturing to a sofa. "I don't know. Haven't owned one since you gave mine away without asking." Her smile twitched. She made lasagna, poured wine, asked questions about my businesses, my travels, my exes. For 2 hours, she played the perfect mother, as if 15 years hadn't happened, as if she hadn't once stolen my college fund to fly to Aruba with a dentist she met in rehab. "So," she said finally, after clearing the plates, "why now?" I took a deep breath and reached into my briefcase. Inside, a sealed steel box reached into my briefcase. Inside, a sealed steel box. I placed it on the dining table with a soft clink. $10 million. I placed it on the dining table with a soft clink. $10 million, I said. Her eyes widened, but she masked it quickly. "You're joking. Not a cent of it is funny." She leaned in. "Why? Are you giving this to me?" "I'm not. I'm storing it. Somewhere only I know." I watched her. She glanced at the safe across the hall, the one hidden behind a portrait of us at Disneyland, age 6. "You still use that thing?" I asked casually. "Of course. Fireproof, waterproof, bulletproof." "Good. Then that's where it goes." She stared at me. "Why not a bank?" "Because I don't trust banks, and because I need to see if I can trust you." She blinked. Her throat moved as she swallowed something. "Fear, maybe. Or greed." I pushed the box toward her. "I'll pick it up tomorrow," I said. "Until then, it's in your hands." She nodded slowly. "You've really changed." I stood. "Not as much as you think." I drove to a nearby hotel, checking in under a fake name, part of a ritual I'd developed over the years. That night, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what kind of person tests his own mother. Then I remembered the letter she forged in my name when I was 17, the one that withdrew me from college before I even started, just so she could pocket the refund check. The memory helped me sleep. I woke up the next morning to a missed call from her number. I called back. No answer. Then I drove to the house. The front door was locked. The curtains drawn. Mail already piling in the box. I tried the key she'd given me. It didn't fit. Gone. I went around to the back door. Broken lock. Inside, the living room was empty. Not just tidy stripped. No furniture, no photos, no scent. The safe behind the Disneyland portrait? Open. Empty. I stood there for a long moment, looking, smiling. Then I laughed. Not because I'd lost $10 million, but because I hadn't. She thought she took everything, but what she really took was the bait. And the real game had just begun. I stood in the doorway of my mother's house, or what used to be her house, and felt nothing. Not rage, not fear, not even surprise. Just the cold confirmation of what I'd expected. The place had been gutted with surgical precision. Furniture gone, curtains, wall hangings, even the ceiling fan blades missing. No dust, no damage, just absence. She didn't run in panic. She vanished by design. I walked through the house like an investigator. Not a son. Kitchen drawers open, but nothing of use. Bedroom closets cleared, hangers swinging gently as if she'd left minutes ago. Safe door ajar, the interior lined in velvet. The scent of lavender still lingered faintly, like the ghost of a lie. $10 million, or what she thought was 10 million gone with her. She'd moved fast. Overnight, probably right after I left. No goodbye, no explanation. But I didn't need one. My phone buzzed. It was Dorian, my head of private security and longtime friend. I'd told him not to call unless it was urgent. "Talk to me," I said. "She's gone, right?" "Yeah." I picked up the tracker. Last ping was near Teterboro Airport about 4 hours ago. Private hangar. She turned it off mid-flight. Of course she did. I walked into the empty master bedroom, sat on the edge of the bare mattress. It creaked under my weight like it was sighing with me. Dorian continued. We got plate footage rented Escalade, prepaid burner, the works. She's had this plan for months, I muttered. She just needed the opportunity. She's good. She's a pro. There was a pause on the line. Then Dorian said, what we were both thinking. Are you sure you want to do this, Ryan? I looked around the room, then out the window at the quiet street. Perfectly trimmed lawns, distant dog barks, sprinkler systems clicking in rhythm. She thinks she stole $10 million from me, Dorian. That's not the crime. That's the invitation. By noon, I was back at my safe house of brownstone in Brooklyn, under a shell company, where I kept surveillance gear, backups, and certain contingencies. I opened the laptop and pulled up the logs. The money had been bundled in specially modified bricks reel, 100 bills on the top and bottom. The rest layers of professionally printed prop cash used in film sets. Enough to pass a glance, maybe even a count, but not the weight. Inside one bundle, a GPS tracker, no bigger than a thumbnail. State of the art. Battery life of 5 days, disguised as a metal security strip. I watched the playback. The signal moved from the house to the highway around 2:13 a.m. Straight shot to Teterboro. Last signal blip, Hangar 17B. She'd used a private charter. No passport flagged. Fake ID. Probably another alias from her archive. Smart, but not smart enough. I called in another friend, Mira. If Dorian was muscle, Mira was the mind. She used to work in the cybersecurity division of a 3-letter agency. Quit after a whistleblower scandal that nearly got her killed. Now she worked freelance mostly for me. She arrived within the hour, laptop in hand, sipping a lavender latte. You weren't kidding, she said, dropping into the chair across from me. Your mom pulled a full ghost move. She always was dramatic. Mira tapped a few keys. I've traced 3 burner numbers to one location before they went dead somewhere outside Miami. Looks like she made contact with an old flame. Do you remember a guy named Mark Thorne? The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Yeah, I said flatly. He was her boyfriend when I was 10. Ran a Ponzi scheme out of a church donation fund. Disappeared before the indictment. Well, guess what? He's back. And so is your mom. They've been texting under aliases for 2 weeks. So this wasn't just a getaway. It was a partnership. She's planning something, I said. Big, probably. You don't reconnect with a felon for brunch. That night, I sat alone in the safe house. All the lights were off, save for the flicker of surveillance monitors and Mira's ghostly blue code running across the screen. I sipped bourbon, letting the warmth trickle down, while I stared at an old photo I kept in the drawer. Me and her. I must have been 6, maybe 7. We were at the beach. I was smiling with a popsicle in one hand and a toy boat in the other. She was crouched beside me, arms wrapped around my shoulders, smiling into the camera like she was proud. It had to be fake. I searched the photo for clues, anything real, but all I found was a note scribbled on the back in her handwriting. My golden boy, the best con I ever pulled. I burned it in the sink. 2 days passed. Then 3. Dorian's team traced the rental car back to a fake ID tied to an abandoned warehouse in Fort Lauderdale. Inside, nothing but receipts, an open laptop with a wiped hard drive, and a coffee cup with her lipstick on the rim. A message was scrawled in permanent marker on the desk. Too slow, sweetheart. She was toying with me now. Typical. But this wasn't just a grift. This was personal. On the 4th day, Mira cracked a trail through a cryptocurrency tumbler linked to Mark Thorne's known wallet. They were planning a deal. Something big. Looks like they're trying to move $50 million in digital assets, she said. The $10 million you gave her? That was seed money, a credibility front. She's laundering my fake money to bait real investors. Exactly. They think they're playing everyone, but they're about to get played. That night, I made a call. A man named Victor answered. He owed me a favor. The kind of favor that had no price, just leverage. I need access to a private conference happening next week in Cartagena. Quiet, high-level, invitation only. Dangerous crowd. I'm counting on it. You think she'll be there? I know she'll be there. And when she showed up, she wouldn't be walking out with $10 million. she'd be crawling out with nothing. That kept me going. That kept me angry. The day I made my first million, I sent her a check for $5,000. Just enough to remind her I was alive, and that I didn't need her. She cashed it, of course. No note, no call. Just a deposit slip with her initials scribbled in the memo line. V.C. You see, my mother never loved people. She used them. And if she couldn't use you, she erased you. So when she disappeared with the money, I didn't feel shocked. I felt vindicated. She'd proven exactly what I needed her to prove. That she was still the same monster in pearls. And now, I had every reason I needed to destroy her. While Dorian followed her physical trail, I started tracing the psychological one. I needed to understand not just where she was going, but why. What did she want now? What was her angle? Mira pulled up her social traces, going back 6 months. She'd recently reactivated an old Instagram account under a different name. @Clara DeWitt. Travel photos, cocktails, designer shoes. But one post stood out, a black and white picture of a painting, Picasso's The Weeping Woman. The caption read, "Even the best masks crack eventually." I stared at the photo for a long time. That wasn't vanity. That was a message. To me. I started combing through her known aliases. Veronica Cole, Vera Kent, Clara DeWitt, Lena Fox. Dozens of IDs. Hundreds of accounts. Each one built with just enough truth to feel real. She'd been preparing this move for years. Even the house I visited last week, that wasn't hers. It was rented 6 months ago through a management firm she owned under a fake LLC. She hadn't reconnected with me by accident. She'd orchestrated the entire meeting to bait me, to see if I still wanted her trust, to test whether the sun she broke could still be broken. But what she didn't know was that I had changed. I wasn't the desperate kid looking for a mother. I was a man with a long memory and a sharper mind. And this time, I was going to con the con artist. Cartagena's ready, Victor texted. The conference was called Celadoran Ultra Exclusive Retreat for Off-Market Investors and Black Book Financiers, the kind of place where billionaires shook hands over blood deals and digital currencies. Mark Thorne had once been on their radar years ago, blacklisted after a scandal, but still known. If they were staging a deal, it would be there. All I had to do was walk into the lion's den. But I wouldn't walk in as Ryan Cole. I'd go in as someone new, someone she couldn't see coming. That night, I wrote a letter. It was the kind you only write once in your life. Addressed to her, sealed in an envelope. I left it in my desk drawer, under a file labeled, "In case I don't come back." The last line read, "You stole the last piece of me when you took that box. But what was inside wasn't money. It was a test, and you failed it." There's a moment in every con when the con artist starts to believe their own lie. For Veronica Cole, that moment happened decades ago. She didn't just believe she deserved to win. She believed she was untouchable. And for a long time, she was. I was 8 the first time I watched her lie with a smile and a tear in her eye. A man named Jerry had come to our front door balding, nervous, holding a bouquet of wilting flowers. He'd driven from 3 states away, thinking he was meeting his fiancée for the first time in person. Veronica opened the door in a bathrobe and gasped, like she didn't recognize him. "Jerry?" she said, as if the name was foreign. "Two brought you these," he stammered. "From our calls, you said you liked daisies." She looked at him with theatrical confusion. "I think you've made a mistake. I don't know you." He stood there, stunned, embarrassed, crushed. She shut the door before he could say another word. Then, she turned to me and laughed. "He'll get over it," she said. "They always do." By the time I was a teenager, I understood the pattern. She never worked a real job. Just new haircuts, new names, new men. She'd float into their lives like a dream and leave with their savings, their passwords, and sometimes their cars. But her worst cons weren't the ones she pulled on strangers. They were the ones she pulled on me. When I was 16, I got accepted to a prestigious prep school in Boston. Full scholarship, my way out. I was already packing when she walked into my room and told me the school had rescinded the offer due to a clerical issue. I believed her until a year later, when I found the letter under a stack of old magazines in the garage. it hadn't been rescinded. She had forged my signature on the withdrawal form and sent it back, just so I wouldn't leave her. I confronted her. She didn't deny it. "You would have abandoned me," she said flatly. "Just like your father." My father, James, was the only good thing in our house. A quiet, thoughtful man who loved jazz, crossword puzzles, and Sunday walks. He tried to protect me, gave me money in secret, taught me to read contracts and bank statements. But he was no match for her. By the time I was 12, she'd convinced him he was worthless, that every mistake was his fault, that she was the only reason we weren't living under a bridge. She drained his accounts, refused to sign the divorce papers, trapped him in a cycle of humiliation and guilt. He died in his sleep before he could get out. I remember standing over his casket, thinking, she killed him, not with a weapon, but with 1,000 cuts. After he died, I left. I slept in a car, ate from vending machines, took odd jobs: dishwasher, library clerk, tech support for old women who thought the mouse was a microphone. I built my life from the ground up, and every time I thought about quitting, I remembered her smirk, her indifference, her ability to smile while she stole. That kept me going. That kept me angry. The day I made my first million, I sent her a check for $5,000. Just enough to remind her I was alive, and that I didn't need her. She cashed it, of course. No note, no call. Just a deposit slip with her initials scribbled in the memo line. V.C. You see, my mother never loved people. She used them. And if she couldn't use you, she erased you. So when she disappeared with the money, I didn't feel shocked. I felt vindicated. She'd proven exactly what I needed her to prove, that she was still the same monster in pearls. And now, I had every reason I needed to destroy her. While Dorian followed her physical trail, I started tracing the psychological one. I needed to understand not just where she was going, but why. What did she want now? What was her angle? Mira pulled up her social traces, going back 6 months. She'd recently reactivated an old Instagram account under a different name. @Clara DeWitt. Travel photos, cocktails, designer shoes. But one post stood out: a black and white picture of a painting, Picasso's The Weeping Woman. The caption read, "Even the best masks crack eventually." I stared at the photo for a long time. That wasn't vanity. That was a message. To me. I started combing through her known aliases. Veronica Cole, Vera Kent, Clara DeWitt, Lena Fox. Dozens of IDs. Hundreds of accounts. Each one built with just enough truth to feel real. She'd been preparing this move for years. Even the house I visited last week, that wasn't hers. It was rented 6 months ago through a management firm she owned under a fake LLC. She hadn't reconnected with me by accident. She'd orchestrated the entire meeting to bait me, to see if I still wanted her trust, to test whether the sun she broke could still be broken. But what she didn't know was that I had changed. I wasn't the desperate kid looking for a mother. I was a man with a long memory and a sharper mind. And this time, I was going to con the con artist. Cartagena's ready, Victor texted. The conference was called Celadoran Ultra Exclusive Retreat for Off-Market Investors and Black Book Financiers, the kind of place where billionaires shook hands over blood deals and digital currencies. Mark Thorne had once been on their radar years ago, blacklisted after a scandal, but still known. If they were staging a deal, it would be there. All I had to do was walk into the lion's den. But I wouldn't walk in as Ryan Cole. I'd go in as someone new, someone she couldn't see coming. That night, I wrote a letter. It was the kind you only write once in your life. Addressed to her, sealed in an envelope. I left it in my desk drawer, under a file labeled "In case I don't come back." The last line read, "You stole the last piece of me when you took that box, but what was inside wasn't money. It was a test, and you failed it." Every con has a moment of illusion, a point where the target feels untouchable. That's the high Veronica chased her entire life, and I was about to give her the greatest illusion she'd ever experienced. Then rip it apart from the inside. The man in the mirror didn't look like Ryan Cole anymore. He wore a cream linen suit tailored to perfection, the kind reserved for off-book oil barons and disgraced hedge fund wizards. A silk shirt, unbuttoned just low enough to suggest arrogance. Custom loafers, Rolex Daytona, real but scuffed because new wealth doesn't command fear. But the most important part? The accent. A soft, lazy drawlin, American educated in Zurich, raised in Dubai, schooled in blood money investments and untraceable capital. Meet Damien Korek, my new identity, built from the bones of 3 abandoned passports, 2 shell corporations, and 1 favor owed by a very nervous man in the Caymans. Suit fits, Mira said, standing behind me. It's supposed to. Still think you can pull this off? I adjusted the collar. I'm not here to pull it off. I'm here to set it off. Cartagena was a city of masks. Beneath its beauty, the colonial buildings, salsa rhythms, and sun-kissed beaches lay a darker world. A place where reputations were built on offshore accounts and broken with whispers over aged rum. Celador was held at La Sombra, a private estate turned fortress for the ultra-elite. Security at the front gate. No phones, no questions. Victor got me in with a forged invitation. I arrived in a black SUV with tinted windows and a briefcase filled with counterfeit crypto wallets. The goal: blend in, get close. Wait, I didn't need to chase my mother. She'd come to me. The estate's ballroom smelled like gold and old money. Men in suits sipping top-shelf mezcal. Women in diamond-studded dresses discussing political realignment opportunities. Screens around the room showed silent footage of collapsed currencies and war zones, overlaid with blockchain ticker streams. It was a playground for the morally bankrupt. And Veronica fit in perfectly. She arrived like a queen draped in green silk, a champagne flute in one hand, Mark Thorne on her arm. I saw her before she saw me. She was laughing. That fake, honey-coated laugh that always came right before she devoured someone. I stayed in the shadows, sipping my drink, pretending not to notice. But she noticed me. Not me, of course. Damien Korek, the mysterious investor from Luxembourg who just moved 50 million in digital gold across dark wallets in under 3 hours. She made her move within 15 minutes. Mind if I sit? She asked, gesturing to the leather chair beside me. I glanced at her with rehearsed disinterest. It's a free country, allegedly. She smiled. I like your watch. Vintage? Stolen, probably. She laughed like we were old friends already. I'm Clara, she said, offering her hand. I didn't take it. Damien. Damien, she repeated slowly. You sound like trouble. Only to people I like. She was hooked. I could see it in the way she leaned in, how her eyes danced across my cufflinks and subtle tan lines. She was calculating. Always calculating. But what she didn't know was that she wasn't the only one. Over the next 2 days, she courted me, introduced me to her partner, Mark Thorne, a man who looked like an insurance salesman but talked like a Bond villain. He kept his distance, sizing me up from behind tinted glasses and stiff smiles. They were prepping a deal, a new fund for decentralized investments in high-risk political zones. Translation: laundering cartel money through shell charities and crypto wallets. They wanted me to front 10 million as a first-round buy-in, to legitimize the fund, create trust. It was too perfect. I agreed without hesitation, and just like that, I was inside the con. On the third night, Veronica invited me to a private dinner on the rooftop. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. The ocean stretched out like black silk. 2 glasses of wine sat waiting, condensation beating like sweat on nervous skin. Tell me something, Damien, she said, swirling her glass. What's your exit strategy? Exit? I said, feigning surprise. Darling, I just got here. She laughed, but her eyes were sharp. I've met men like you, mysterious, disconnected, always moving. You're not wrong. So why stop now? I looked at her, really looked. In that moment, I saw the woman who ruined my father. The woman who locked me out of my future and called it protection. The woman who smiled while destroying everything she touched. But she didn't see me. She saw Damien, and that made it easier. I go where the tide pays me to go, I said. This week, the tide's here. She leaned closer. And if it pulls you under, I smiled. Then I take it with me. Back in my room, I opened the encrypted line to Mira. She's ready, I said. Time to spring the trap? Set it. The next morning, Thorne and Veronica presented their proposal in a private salon. A 12-slide pitch deck, a crypto token with a meaningless name, and a glossy vision of future profits from invisible pipelines. I was reluctant at first, but by noon I told them I was in. 10 million. They handed me a contract, printed on thick stock paper with a fake legal header. I signed it with a flourish, then handed them the briefcase. Inside was a cold storage wallet. Encrypted. Impossible to access without the decryption key I didn't give them. They'd think they scored. They'd think they won. And in that arrogance, they'd expose themselves. That night, Veronica came to my room. I left the door open. She stood in the doorway like she had when I was a kid, pretending to tuck me in while checking under the bed for cash. But this time, she wasn't my mother. She was just a con artist, and I was her final mark. "I knew you weren't who you said you were," she said softly. "Is that so? You're too smart, too prepared, too polished. Guilty. But I don't care." She stepped closer. "I think we could do something big, bigger than this, together." She touched my wrist, lightly. "You and me. No more Mark. No more games." For a moment, I almost broke character, because I realized she would have sold him out for me. Her own partner. That's who she really was. I leaned in, close enough for her to feel the lie on my breath. "Let's finish this deal first." She smiled, pulled back, and said, "Tomorrow morning, we close it. New life." And she left, thinking she owned me. But tomorrow wasn't going to be the close. It was going to be the collapse. Back in New York, Dorian had already moved into Phase 2, contacting the FBI's Financial Crimes Division through a mutual friend. The deal I signed? It was laced with enough forensic evidence to tie her to international laundering, fraud, and 2 open warrants in her real name. Mira had cloned her laptop during the rooftop dinner. Every keystroke, every private message, every crypto transfer. We had her. All that was left was the final act. Tomorrow, she was going to feel untouchable. And then, she'd learn the truth. The morning sun rose over Cartagena like a golden eye watching everything. Heat shimmered off the cobblestones. Locals set up market stalls nearby, unaware that several $1 million worth of digital fraud was about to detonate just a few blocks away. I put on my suit like armor, not because I needed to look good, but because I was walking into a war. Veronica and Mark Thorne were already waiting at the estate's inner courtyard private, manicured, serene, a place built for quiet, elite corruption. They looked like royalty, on the verge of a financial coup. She was radiant in white, hair up, red lipstick, no signs of guilt, no cracks, just hunger. Mark clutched a small silver briefcase me crypto wallet, probably imagining which island he'd buy first. "Morning, Damien," she said with a smile like silk over steel. "Shall we make history?" Mark added, ever the sleazy showman. I gave them both a nod. "Let's get rich." We entered the mirrored conference room at the back of the estate. The windows were shaded, the air cold and calculated. At the center sat the broker and intermediary known only as Javier, who spoke through a translator and held no attachments to anyone but money. "I understand the deposit has been made," Javier said through his assistant. "And the wallet is secure?" "Yes," Mark replied confidently. 10 million, cold storage, fully encrypted. "And the unlock key?" "Ready once the contract is filed," Veronica added. Javier tapped a document with a gold pen. My fake alias, Damien Korick, was listed as primary investor. My crypto signature was forged by me. Every detail matched, except for one. The wallet held exactly 1 in Bitcoin. The rest, a custom worm script Mira had designed. The second they accessed it, their entire history would be exposed. Every wallet, every transfer, every hidden stash, in every jurisdiction. It was the equivalent of detonating a nuclear bomb in their financial lives. "Shall we execute?" Veronica asked. Javier nodded. "Mr. Korick?" I smiled. "Let's light the fuse." She handed Mark the wallet. He plugged it into the laptop with shaking fingers. The screen blinked once, twice. A green confirmation light flashed. "Wallet accessed," he said. And at that exact moment, everything unraveled. First, his screen froze. Then another window popped up. "Hello, Mark." "Hello, Veronica." "Smile. You've just been robbed by the man you created." His face contorted. He clicked wildly. "Nothing." Then Veronica leaned in. "What is this?" "Impossible," Mark said, voice shaking. "It's locked out. We're locked out." And then she saw the next line of the message. "You're not conning Damien Korek. You're conning your son." Her breath caught. She turned to me. Everything about her face changed in that instant. The smug smile collapsed. The mask shattered. Her eyes went wide. "Ryan?" I didn't say a word. I just watched the horror bloom on her face. Security burst in seconds later. Dorian was with them disguised as estate staff. "Hands up!" one barked. Veronica stood frozen, her gaze locked to mine. Mark panicked, bolting toward the door. Big mistake. He was tackled to the marble floor, face first. Veronica didn't move. She just kept staring. "You played me," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "I finished the game you started." Javier stepped back, watching it all unfold with mild curiosity. He knew what this was. A reckoning. "Is she under arrest?" he asked calmly. "International warrants," Dorian said, showing him the confirmation. "Interpol's already en route. Multiple fraud cases. Unpaid sentences. She's going away for a long time." Veronica opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Not an excuse. Not a plea. Not even my name. For the first time in her life, she was speechless. As they led her away in cuffs, she turned to me, her voice barely a whisper. "You planned this all along." I stepped closer. "I gave you a chance," I said. "To be different. To prove you'd changed." "I would have, Ryan. I swear if we just made it to the next phase." I shook my head. "You would have sold Mark out and then sold me out." She blinked. The truth struck her harder than the arrest. I leaned in one last time. The money wasn't real. But the betrayal? That was. Mark was screaming as they dragged him out. "Veronica?" She walked quietly. Dignified. Broken. Back in the room, Javier gave me a long look. "So," he said slowly, "Mr. Cole, that was entertaining. Glad you enjoyed the show. I imagine this is your exit now." "Yes." "May I ask why?" I turned to him. "Because justice doesn't always come through courts." "Ah," he said, smiling faintly. "Sometimes it comes through bloodlines." Outside, Mira was waiting in a car. Laptop on her knees, typing as fast as the wind. She handed me a tablet. "Here," she said. "Final damage report. Wallets drained. 18 stolen assets flagged. 47.3 million authorities notified. 5 countries. Full digital dossier. Sent to Interpol, DOJ, EU Banking Commission, and the IRS." Veronica and Mark were done, and every dirty secret they ever touched was going public. We drove to the airport in silence. Not because we didn't have anything to say, but because some victories deserve quiet. Later that night, back in my safe house, I opened my email. There was a message waiting, from a burner account. No reply address. Subject line: "You win. For now." There was no body, no signature, but I knew who it was. She'd gotten one last message out before they took her devices. Classic Veronica. Even in a cage, she played mind games. But this time, I didn't care. Because this time, I'd already won. 2 weeks later, I walked into a cafe in the center of Lisbon wearing sunglasses, a gray wool coat, and a calm smile that hid every bruise my mother ever gave, memento or otherwise. The story in the international news cycle had already crested. Infamous grifter duo captured in crypto sting. Interpol was holding Mark in a maximum security facility in The Hague. Veronica was being held separately, awaiting extradition to the US, under a sealed indictment spanning 17 counts of financial fraud and interstate wire theft. But something didn't sit right. The email, the tone, the timing. "You win. For now." That was not the voice of a woman who was defeated. It was the voice of someone who had planned to be caught. Back at my Lisbon safe house, Mira sat on a beanbag with two laptops open, one streaming legal feeds, the other running decryption software. "You sure you want to keep digging?" she asked. "I'm not sure I can stop," I replied. "She's still playing. She's in custody, Ryan." "Exactly. Too easy," Mira frowned. "You think she wanted to get caught? Think about it. She's been running for decades. She could have disappeared into the Amazon or Morocco or gone full facelift and vanished in Eastern Europe. But instead, she walks into a fake investor's trap and lets herself get taken alive." Mira paused. "A plea deal? Maybe. Or something worse." I stared at the encrypted file that had just popped up on screen. "It's a shell game," I muttered. "And she's still moving pieces." 2 days later, I got a call from Dorian. "Problem," he said. I figured. She flipped. "What?" "Veronica's cutting a deal with US authorities. She's agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence." "Testify against who?" Dorian was quiet for a second. "You." I sat back slowly. "You're serious?" "They're not buying it, but she's got stories. Fake contracts, voice recordings fabricated. Claims that you orchestrated the entire laundering ring." I laughed out loud. "She's trying to reverse con me in custody?" "Apparently. And get this, she's naming you as the real mastermind behind Mark's operations." My pulse slowed. I wasn't shocked. I was impressed. She was setting the board for the next game, even from inside a cage. The next day, I made a decision I hadn't made in years. I requested to see her. Legally, she had the right to refuse. She didn't. A week later, I sat across from her in a federal detention center in Virginia. She looked thinner, paler. The jumpsuit couldn't hide her posture, though still perfectly straight, head high like royalty behind bars. "I thought you might come," she said. "No, you didn't," I replied. "You hoped I would, so you could explain your next lie before I buried you with it." She gave me a thin smile. "How's Lisbon?" I didn't answer. She leaned forward. "I want to make a deal. You're not in a position to negotiate.